Hey guys, in this video we're going to be taking a look at two radar detectors. We've got the Radenso Pro here and the Radenso Pro SE. They're basically the same thing with some very small differences, which I'll touch on in just a moment. And because they're effectively the same thing, we're going to be talking about both detectors here at the same time. Now in this video, the way we're going to do it is we're just going to run through some of the highlights. We're going to take a look at the performance of the detector, how well it compares to the competition, a lot of the features that it has, ability to filter out false alerts, things that it does well, things that it needs improvement on, how it compares to the competition, price, all the typical stuff, right? We're going to run through it. So with that said, let's just kind of jump into things. So what are we looking at here, kind of big picture? Well, Radenso, they're new here to the States, but they've been making detectors overseas in Europe under the name Genevo. And then they rebranded themselves as Radenso here in the States and started producing detectors. Their first detector that they came out with was the Radenso Pro. Looks like this. It's got the kind of yellow-orangey display. Then they came out with another version of it called the Radenso Pro SE, which just has a couple differences. Obviously the display is different. They're going to cause each other to, like, you know, false alert and stuff sometimes, but you can see we have the yellow display here and then kind of a red display here for the SE. The SE, the main difference in it is it has an extra chip in it, an LNA, a low noise amplifier. It's a little amplifier that sits right behind the antenna, right behind the horn, and actually boosts the signal strength. So it's going to give you better sensitivity, better performance, better range. So this version will give you better performance than the original version. Price-wise, this guy retails for $350. This guy retails for $500. Pretty much this is the way to go. You're going to be getting awesome performance here with either one of these two. So you're going to be getting higher end performance. You've got a lot of features that are available in a lot of the other detectors. Like, it has a GPS chip built in, so you've got your GPS lockouts and your low speed muting and your red light camera alerts. And it's got a lot of the bells and whistles and a lot of the higher performance stuff at a lower price point and having everything really integrated. Additionally, the customer service is pretty awesome. So it has a lot to offer. It's not fully complete and done yet. There is still some work that needs to be done to the detectors, but nonetheless, you're going to be getting a lot of stuff with these detectors here. They perform really well, and they've got a lot of really good stuff to offer, and looking forward into the future, they're very, very promising. So definitely some interesting detectors. Let's start by actually talking about performance, and since that's going to be basically the main thing. The Radenso Pro compares pretty similarly to the V1, the Max 2, a lot of the high-end detectors. The Radenso Pro SE is going to give you performance comparable to the Redline, which is basically the highest performance windshield mount radar detector you can get. So basically you're looking at V1, Max, Max 2, Max 360, and Redline level performance. So really impressive stuff. So if we take a look, I mean, price point, this guy retails for $350. If you want to get a V1, you know, you're looking at about, what, $400 for that guy. If you want the Max 2, this guy retails for $600. If you want the Max 360, this guy retails for $650, whereas this guy retails for $350. So really impressive stuff there. If you want to step up for the higher performance one, which is, to a lot of us enthusiasts, is the one that's really the most interesting, again, you're getting Redline level performance. This is like the longest range high performance radar detector you can get for your windshield. This guy retails now for $550. This guy retails for $500. Additionally, the Redline does not have a GPS chip built in, so it has you know, the range, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles like the GPS lockouts and a lot of the false alert filtering and the red light cameras. So what you can now get is, if you like the idea of the Redline with the high-end performance, but you also want the GPS, kind of like a hybrid of these two detectors. You've got, you know, the Redline for the performance, and then you've got the Max 2 for the GPS, the red light cameras, the false filtering. If you were to put these two together, you're basically left here with the Radenso Pro SE. So it's kind of, you know, everything all in one. That's the really interesting thing with it. Additionally, the customer service, which I'll get into in just a bit, is really good. So things in terms of firmware updates, if you ever need help, if you need assistance, or if anything goes wrong, like, you've got all that stuff backing you up too. So that's one of the reasons, well, all that stuff together is like why this detector is so interesting. I'll post a link in the video description to the test results if you want to see how these two detectors compare to the V1 and the Redline and the Max, and you want to see all that kind of stuff. 33.8. They're causing each other to false, as you can see. But yeah, we did testing on 33.8, 34.7, 35.5, K-band, all the standard stuff. You can take a look at that. It's in the video description. It's pretty awesome. Another cool thing about the detector is it's tiny. It's really tiny. Like, you take a look at it and it's very small. I mean, look at the size of this thing compared to the competition. Like, here's a Max 2, here's the Redline. I mean, look how much smaller it is than a lot of these other detectors. It's tiny. Like even, here we go, here's the V1. We'll just bring up a couple detectors so you can see there's the V1, the Max 360, which people talk about how huge it is. Like, look at the difference there in size. I mean, huge difference. So the Radenso is very, very tiny. If you look at the display, you can see we've got our GPS. Tells us we got GPS right now. We're in highway mode. We can change sensitivity levels. We've got our speed right there. We've got our compass, and we can change all this to display all sorts of things. I've got it set to speed and compass. So, yeah, let's talk about next false alert filtering. Now, when it comes to false alert filtering, this detector has quite a few options. It's got a bunch of stuff that it can do. First thing, yep, you do have a GPS chip built in, and you do have GPS lockouts. There is still some work that they need to do. The lockouts still don't work reliably. And I'm going to get into lockouts in just a bit, but yes, it does have GPS lockouts. The way it works, it's totally manual, so when you get a signal...
K-band.
Oops. You press a button once to mute, you press and hold another one of the buttons and it does the lockouts. So it's not automatic where it can learn them automatically. You do have to actually press a button to have the signal get locked out. It's not going to be able to do it for you automatically, but it does have the feature, and hopefully there's a firmware update coming towards the end of the month, from what I understand, that should actually fix a lot of this stuff, but again, I'll cover that in just a bit. In terms of other false alert stuff, you've got a bunch of really cool stuff. You've got things like low speed muting and sensitivity based muting. Like, check this out.
Setting mode. Highway mode.
Alright, so there's a couple sensitivity options.
City mode. Auto city mode.
Okay, so
Auto city speed limit.
what we can actually do is we can set two different speed limits. Number one is, so currently below 20 miles an hour, I can set it to where it's just going to mute all signals for me. Very nice. Below 35 miles an hour,
City level.
it's going to dial back the sensitivity to whatever range I set. So you can adjust all this, and so currently below 35 miles an hour, it's going to dial back the sensitivity of X-band and K-band somewhat. And you can adjust, you know, exactly how much you want to pull back the sensitivity. So around town, if you want, you can actually say, hey, I don't need maximum sensitivity on K-band. I'm going to be getting a lot of false alerts maybe. Dial back the sensitivity somewhat, and this actually helps deal with the false alerts quite nicely, in addition to the things like the GPS lockouts
Setting
and
completed.
low speed muting and all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty handy. You do have more fine-tuned control over your false alert filtering, which is one of the things I really like about this detector. In terms of blind spot filtering, you've got, again, more control. Let's take a look at this.
Setting mode. Traffic filter off.
Okay, so we have a couple different settings for TSR, essentially. We've got TSR off,
Traffic filter low.
low,
Traffic filter high.
and high. So rather than TSR on and off, we now have a low and a high setting.
Traffic filter off.
And what this is for is just like TSR, it introduces a delay. TSR low has a less of a delay. TSR high has more of a delay. So high will be quieter at the expense of performance. What I found, TSR low is okay at filtering out false alerts. It does a pretty good job, but you definitely do still get some poking through. If you set it to TSR high, that definitely quiets things down even further. So low is going to be kind of a good compromise. If you're pretty sure K-band's not in use and you want to quiet things down even more, that's a good time for TSR high. So I like that you actually have, again, more control, more options of the detector, so you can really dial in the experience that you want. So that's kind of one of the things I'm really liking here is basically Radenso is doing an awesome job of listening to us as an enthusiast community. Like, it's designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts, and a lot of these fine-tuned things are awesome. So it's really helping us design the detector that we want, which is great. I love it for that. Okay, cool. Now, GPS lockouts. I do definitely want to talk about this. They're not working properly right now. The way it works here, I'll shut off one real quick. The way lockouts work is you've got two buttons here on top. This is going to be mute. Press and hold this one, and it's going to lock out a signal. Let's go ahead and do that real quick, and I'll just demonstrate it.
K-band. False alert area added.
There you go. So we now have that signal locked out. So you can see it's muted, and now in the future, when we see this signal again, it's going to go ahead and lock it out again and not alert us in the future, which is awesome. You can see I do have to do it manually. It's not automatic, but it does have the capability. So if I shoot it again, you'll notice, hey, it's automatically muted. Awesome. Super handy. And if you want,
false alert area deleted.
you can then,
K-band.
and then we'll just press the left button just to mute it real quick. So you can see we can lock and unlock signals, we can mute, very cool. The thing is the lockouts are not working reliably. About 50% of the time the lockouts don't work, and so you drive around, next time you see it, the signal won't mute. Sometimes you have to you try pressing lockouts several times and it will not lock out the signal. So this is a known issue, it's been an issue for months, and I know Radenso's engineers are currently working on this to get the lockouts working properly. From what I understand, there's a firmware update due sometime around the end of the month, hopefully soon, to get all this stuff dialed in. So currently the lockouts don't work properly. Additionally, it's kind of annoying to use in practice. And the reason I say that, it's two different buttons for the lockouts. Typically the way detectors that have lockouts work is you have one button that you press, and you maybe press it once for lockout, and you press it once to mute, and then you press the mute button again like maybe 2 or 3 times to lock out the signal. So it's one button, and it's kind of like short press to mute and some sort of multiple press or long press to lock out. Just one button so you don't get it confused. With the Radenso, it's not the case. It's a short press here or a long press there. So short press to mute, long press to lock out. If you get it backwards just in the heat of the moment, you just go up and try to press the button, weird stuff will happen. For example, this is the lockout button. If you mean to mute a signal, but you don't press it long enough,
K-band. Dim.
so what happens is you may inadvertently wind up,
Smart dark.
turning off the brightness of the detector. Let me mute it real quick. So if instead of mute, you press this button, which is the lockout button, what'll happen is you'll turn off the display by accident if you have it, set to a different option. So now you're turning off the display. Or let's say you are trying to press and hold the lockout button,
K-band.
but instead you're pressing and holding the mute button. Watch this. Instead of locking out a signal, if you press the mute button and hold it, you turn off the detector. And so if you get it wrong, weird stuff starts happening. You're blacking out the screen, you're turning off the detector. It's just, I really wish it was one integrated button rather than two. So I'm also hoping with the firmware fix they change this to put everything all on one button. That would be kind of weird given that, these icons here are already designed to say something, so the lockout or the buttons there would no longer be correct if they start changing stuff. But I really do hope they change that so it's just one button, short. Additionally, another thing I can mention, the lockout button,
K-band.
you have to press and hold for 3 seconds.
False alert area added.
I'm hoping they shorten that down to maybe 2 seconds or so, just to, it's hey, I'm pretty sure.
False alert area deleted.
3 seconds feels like a while, so I'm hoping that they kind of dial that back and bring it to only 2 seconds.
Full dark. Bright.
There we go, just do that, turn on the other detector. So anyways, lockouts need some work. They're not ready for prime time yet, but a firmware update is coming. We've been waiting months now, ever since this detector came out basically for this stuff. It's still not working properly, unfortunately, but I'm hoping it does get fixed soon. Okay, so that's false alert filtering. What else? Let's talk about the build quality of the unit. So the build quality, in terms of the design, it's not the greatest. Yes, it's very tiny, it's very compact, but it feels a little cheapy. The plastic, the button feel, it's a little bit cheapy, all that kind of stuff. The power cable on the side, it does not use an RJ11 cable. Like most detectors, they use the, it looks like a phone jack, which I like. It's very solid and reliable. There's nothing wrong with this detector, but it doesn't, it's just kind of a psychological thing, I guess. Yeah, it works fine, but most people have, the RJ11 plugs, and it's nice to actually...
K-band. 33.8.
Oops. Just to kind of keep everything the same, So I wish that was different, but not a huge big deal. Yeah, so build quality, it's not gonna fall apart or anything, but it doesn't exude a sense of confidence and really, really well-built engineering, It feels a little bit cheapy. Okay, let's talk about next, maybe the two of them. The case design is actually identical. If you take a look, this is kind of interesting. Oops. You'll notice both of them say Radenso Pro. The SE does not actually say SE. So the only difference really between the two is the display. The Radenso Pro SE has a red display, whereas this one has an orange display. If you look on the bottom and you look at the FCC ID, hopefully it'll show up on camera, but the FCC IDs are the same, so you can't tell there. The only difference between these two detectors are the serial number and the color of the display. So the SE doesn't actually say SE. Now, this I could actually see being an issue, and the reason is this detector's been really popular. It's currently sold out, and it's been so popular that they just ran out of detectors, so they're trying to get more of them. What they're doing in the meantime to get more is they're going to be selling some SEs with the kind of yellow-orange display from the regular, which means if you have an SE with the orange display, there's literally no way to tell the difference between the regular and the SE, because they're going to have the same color display. So it's really going to be confusing in that way. I really wish they would actually say SE so you know the difference. There's also going to be a third color display, kind of a white text. I had a chance to test one of them in testing. It was an SE, it was one of the development units, and it had the white display. The white I found was kind of the hardest to actually see in practice. I do like these better. I guess it comes down to taste. I'm a little bit more used to red since most detectors are red. But there is going to be a third option with a different colored display, so you're going to have your choice there. The main thing is I just wish it said SE on it so you could tell the difference. Otherwise, short of opening up the detector to see if it has the LNA or not, there's not really going to be a good way to tell the difference. So kind of a weird thing in the future. In terms of the display, it's fine, you know, works fine. You can read it, you can see it there on screen. Another thing is the frequency display is currently incorrect. Let me just shoot 34.7.
KA band 34.7.
And, oh, this guy, because I'm below 20 miles an hour, you can tell it turned off detection. So anyways, what I wanted to point out is take a look at the frequency. It says 34.700. That's not correct. Radenso currently has an issue with displaying accurate frequencies. And what I mean is it can't do that. This has been an issue since the very beginning. What we were finding is it was misrepresenting and misreporting the actual frequencies. So 34.7 was like 34.3, 34.4, 34.5, 34.6. Like it was sometimes a couple hundred megahertz too low. Same thing with 33.8 would be like 33.6-ish. 35.5 would be like 35.3. It was just misrepresenting everything quite a bit, and it wasn't a fixed amount, so you can't just fake it and bump it up. So the frequencies are being reported incorrectly. And this is something that they really need to get fixed. What they've done in the meantime is they just said, well, I know it's about 34.7-ish, so I'm just going to say it's 34.700.
KA band 34.7.
Even if it's 34.696 or 583 or 712 or whatever it is, it just says 34.700, so it's not going to give you an accurate frequency display. That firmware update that I was mentioning for the lockouts, for lockouts to work properly, you are going to have to know the correct frequency, and I'm hoping that since they're working on the lockouts, they also take care of the frequency display all in one fell swoop. I don't know if that's going to be part of this upcoming, what's it called? Firmware update, but I hope so. It would kind of make sense to put the two together, so we're going to have to see. That's a good thing about this company is they've been releasing firmware updates surprisingly often. They're doing a good job of actually listening to the features we want, implementing them, taking care of fixes. It's not overnight. I wish it was done a little bit faster, don't we all, you know? Wish everything was instant. But yeah, it's taking them a little bit of time to get this all done. But I like the fact that they're actually fixing these bugs and getting them done. Hopefully the lockout stuff gets done soon, because it's kind of annoying. Another thing that I'm finding kind of annoying, it does have support for red light cameras. So when you're driving around, it can tell you when you're approaching a red light camera, speed camera, any of that kind of stuff, and it works pretty well. The database is pretty good in it. One issue is, unlike radar, where you can actually press a button to mute the signal, you can't mute a red light camera. So you're basically just going to have the thing beeping at you constantly while you're near a red light camera, and there's no way to mute it. Your only options are to either turn the volume all the way down or turn the detector off altogether, neither of which I like. I'd rather be able to just mute the signal and see it on screen, but not have it keep beeping at me. Additionally, with the red light cameras, you can't lock out a K-band signal if you're also in the presence of a red light camera, which I have those here in town. Let's say a grocery store near a big intersection. The intersection has a red light camera, and I can't mute it. And the lockout, I can't lock out because a red light camera is also present in the same location. And so I can't lock out the signal, I can't mute the red light camera, and even if I could lock out the signal, the lockouts are not working properly anyways. So as you can see, it's not perfect yet. It still has some work to be done. There are firmware updates that can be fixed and are in the process of being fixed, but there are some annoyances to actually using this detector in practice. Yeah, it has the performance. You know, you get the SE, and you're looking at like top of the line performance. You've got all the bells and whistles like the lockouts, the red light cameras, the low speed muting, the speed-based filtering, a lot of that kind of stuff, but it's not perfect yet. It definitely still needs some work, and we're still kind of waiting on Radenso's engineers to get this all dialed in. So, some quirks there with it. A couple other things. The audio. The way the audio works is you've got your volume controls right here. and it goes all the way up to 8, which is decently loud. One thing is there's not a lot of differentiation between like 8 and all the way down to about maybe 4 and 8 sound almost the same, so you don't get a lot of fine-tuned control. If this is a little bit too quiet, you can't really make it quieter or louder, because like all those options are almost identical. And you got there, and you can go totally mute if you want. So you do have your control options there with the volume, but there's some difference between the lower ones, but not the higher ones. And I do wish it was a little bit louder sometimes when you see a signal. I'm gonna turn this off real quick. Another thing that I found is the way the audio reports frequencies. You can actually hear it'll say K-band or Ka-band, and for Ka it'll actually tell you what frequency. Like, watch this, I'll shoot it with 34.7 again.
Ka-band 34.7.
Okay, now listen to that. Did you hear the way it announced the frequency first and then started beeping? Because it does the frequency announcement first, that's not very attention grabbing, and so if you're getting shot with I/O, it's not going to really grab your attention. It's just going to say, oh, Ka-band 34.7, and then it starts beeping. I prefer the other solutions that you'll see from other detectors, like the V1, the Escort, or whatever. Like Escort will beep a couple times, and then it'll announce Ka-band, and then it'll resume beeping. I prefer that because as soon as the detector starts going off, I need it to get my attention, and currently the way the Radenso does it, it does not do that. So listen to it again, what happens initially when you get your alert.
Ka-band 34.7.
So if you've got your music going or the windows down or whatever, the Ka-band 34.7 is super helpful, but it's not attention grabbing. And I got shot with I/O a little while ago, and luckily I had a rabbit in front of me, but it was kind of scary because my detector, it felt like I couldn't hear it for a little while, and I don't like that. So I'm hoping they fix that again with the firmware update in the future. So yeah, that's a basic run through of the detector. You can see we've got two versions. We've got the Radenso Pro and the Pro SE. Oops. Just mute that again real quick. Sorry about that. So you can tell that this is why you don't test radar detectors when they're by each other, because you get false alerts and you get a lot of wonky stuff with, you know, interference. But nonetheless, basically what we're looking here with a radar detector, like, yeah, you're getting high-end performance. This is, again, $350, and you're getting performance of a $400 V1 or a $500 to $600 Escort Passport Max, which is interesting. And you've got the GPS for the lockouts and all that kind of stuff. And same thing here, you've got the performance of a red line, which costs more. And you're getting all the extra bells and whistles of the lockouts, the red light cameras, all that good stuff, which, to be fair, doesn't work properly and could definitely use some fine tuning. But nonetheless, what we're looking at here is awesome. Michael, the rep basically for Radenso here in the States, is fantastic in terms of providing support for people, customer service, answering questions, helping people out after the sale. It is phenomenal. Like, I wish more companies did what Michael would do. He's awesome, awesome stuff. So customer service is excellent. Firmware updates are being done, and they're actually listening to enthusiasts in terms of features that we want and actually implementing them, which is sensational. I do wish they were a little bit faster, but, you know, it is what it is. So, yeah, I think it's a great detector. I don't feel totally comfortable running it yet because of some of the issues I mentioned as far as the audio alerts, the red light camera stuff, which is kind of annoying to me because I got a lot of red light cameras around here. The lockouts aren't working properly, so, like, yeah, it could use some refinement still, but the platform we're looking at in terms of detection, false alert filtering, you've got a ton here for the money. High-end performance, awesome stuff. In terms of what's to come for Radenso in the future, again, more interesting stuff. We've got, you know, the firmware updates to go ahead and dial things in and refine everything with the detectors, hopefully sooner rather than later. There's also going to be a remote version of essentially this detector, kind of like the STIR Plus to the Redline. Remote mount, right? Put it in your grill. It's going to be, you know, you can either run it on its own with a Bluetooth module, so it'll be wireless, or you can even plug it into an ALP. So you're going to be getting high-end performance plugged into your jammer or a high-end remote mount. It should be very, very competitive with like the 9500 Ci, the STIR Plus, maybe even beating them. We'll have to see. I haven't done any testing. I don't have one yet, but, you know, videos to come. They're also looking at making a stealth version of the remote Radenso. It's called the HD Plus. So a regular one, definitely, and possibly, depending on demand and desire, a stealth version, which is going to be undetectable by radar detector detectors, which is awesome if you're in, you know, places in Canada where it's in use, or Virginia, or even if anybody's using radar detector detectors, it'll be undetectable. These guys are detectable, but if they do come out with a stealth version of the remote mounts, those will be undetectable. So a lot of really cool stuff coming here from Radenso, and I love to see what they're doing so far. So full disclosure, these are not my detectors. I have not purchased them. I've had about 4 Radensos, I think, so far. I've been beta testing some development units, a couple of them. This is one that was sent to me earlier on. This is actually Michael's personal unit that he sent to me so that I could go ahead and do this review for you guys. So again, he's been awesome. But I have not purchased these detectors, and I'm going to be sending them back once I complete all my testing and videos. He asked me, do I want any sort of compensation? And you know, the typical thing is no, I would rather not. I'd prefer not being financially biased towards or against any detector, just so it helps me remain more objective. Like, you know, I don't get free stuff in terms of like free detectors and whatnot. Like, yes, he loans them to me from time to time, very common. I get, you know, free detectors just so that I can help you guys out and do videos, and I love doing this kind of stuff. So people have been awesome sending me free stuff. Typically don't keep it. I'm not keeping these. These are going back. If I want one, I'm going to buy one just like you guys, you know, same sort of thing. So yeah, really happy to see what they've been doing so far. I think it's a really promising platform. Overall, kind of the summary, I like it. Some of the things, like as far as the button presses, are annoying. It needs kind of some refinement, like I've mentioned a couple times throughout the video, but the performance is there. The customer service is excellent. It's got all the bells and whistles. I think it's a great detector, and it's going to be really hard to beat once they get everything dialed in and they take care of all the, but what about this, but what about that kind of stuff, you know? Once they refined it to where it doesn't have all these kinds of bugs, I think that's when it's going to be its best pick. Currently it's not there, but I think this is going to be a great unit, and it already is. So yeah, there you go. There's my take on the Radenso Pro and the Radenso Pro SE. If you guys want to ask questions, of course, comment area, but what I would suggest is hop on the forums. A lot of great people posting videos, discussion, sharing their personal experiences, answering questions, helping you set it up, all that good stuff. Go on the forums on RDF. Link in the video description, as always. And yeah, that stuff will all be there. So cool. Hope this has been helpful. This is my take on the Radenso Pro and the Radenso Pro SE. I think the SE is probably the better choice because of the higher performance, but this is also a great option on a budget. It's 150 bucks less, and you're still getting excellent performance. So whichever one you choose, you've got a great detector in your hands. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.